are one of the most democratic spiritual experiences that humans have, whether they're searching for spirituality or just living their normal human path. It is inevitable that at some point in your life you will dream. You don't need initiation to dream. You don't need permission. You don't need a teacher. You just dream. And people might say, I don't dream, or my dreams don't mean anything. They're just random. But the fact remains that dreaming is a universal human function. And even people who say they don't dream often just don't remember their dreams or dismiss what they do recall as meaningless. But dream interpretation isn't about decoding symbols. It's about having a relationship with your inner self, with your guidance, with your feelings, with your psyche, your subconscious. It's your entire inner world in relationship with your consciousness. Dream interpretation is a practice of translating symbolic, emotional, subconscious imagery into conscious understanding. It's not rigid symbolism, as a lot of people might think. You're not going to be able to just pick up a dream interpretation book and interpret every dream you ever have or that your friends and family members have. It's more of that relationship between your inner world, your experiences, your feelings, your hopes, your fears. It's going into the flow of feeling and self-awareness. And that's the most important key in decoding your dream world. It's a conscious understanding of your inner imagery. It's your psyche and possibly your soul speaking in images instead of words, because this is how we understand things on a more deep level. Dreams are the language of the inner self. Long before we had psychology, organized religion, or neuroscience, we had dreams, and we treated them as sacred. Across cultures, dreams were seen as messages from gods, communication from ancestors, warnings or guidance, spiritual journeys, healing diagnostics. Dreaming was never considered random. Let's look back in history a bit. Ancient Mesopotamia, so between 3000 to 2000 BCE. The earliest written evidence of dream interpretation comes from what is now the modern day Iraq. Clay tablets from the Sumerians and Babylonians record dream omens and interpretations, and they were usually structured, if a man dreams this, then this will happen. Dreams were treated as divine messages, predictive warnings, political guidance. Kings consulted dream interpreters before making major decisions. Dream interpreters held respected positions in society. One of the oldest dream manuals, called the Epic of Gilgamesh, and that's from 2100 BCE, includes symbolic dreams interpreted as omens. It's really only been lately that we've decided dreams don't mean anything. Of course, we can go back to our ancient Egyptian heritage there, that 1500 BCE era. And the ancient Egyptians, created one of the first organized dream dictionaries. The Chester Beatty Papyrus from 1275 BCE lists over 100 dreams and their meanings. Those dreams were divided into good dreams versus bad dreams. And Egyptians practiced something called dream incubation, which is where they would sleep in temples to receive healing or divine guidance from gods. And of course, you can't forget the use of Blue Lotus, which was a way to reach the dream world while still in the waking world. Dreaming was considered sacred contact. Go to the ancient Greeks and our lineage there, 800 to 300 BCE. The Greeks expanded dream interpretation into philosophy and medicine, and that brought two important developments: the dream temples and Aristotle. The dream temples are, again, where people slept in these temples of what they considered to be their god of healing, seeking dreams that would diagnose illness or give them cures for illness. Dreams were seen as healing prescriptions. And then we have to go to Aristotle in the 4th century BCE. Aristotle was one of the first to propose that dreams might come from the mind rather than from divine forces. So now we see where we get today's, oh, it doesn't mean anything, right? Straight from Aristotle. We can go straight back to that man. He suggested that dreams reflected bodily sensations and psychological processes. And this was the beginning of that more internalized interpretation, which does have value. We'll get there later in time. In the 2nd century CE, this is where there was influential dream interpretation texts being written in history. And these were distinguished between symbolic dreams that require interpretation and direct dreams, which are very literal and need no interpretation. And these dreams taught that the meaning depends on the dreamer's life context, not universal symbolism. And that idea aligns beautifully with modern metaphysical teachings, like I suggested earlier, because we all have our own inner world, and when creating a relationship with that inner world, we now, at this point in history, understand how there are universal archetypes that as humans within unity consciousness, we are all able to tap into, and we're all interpreting it from our own internal lens, from what we experience and what we feel. Also understanding, because Aristotle's in there, that some of this stuff is how we just process our inner emotions and thoughts that we're working on, chewing on, suppressing. Our body naturally knows how to process and heal itself without going to therapy, without doing conscious healing work. While all of those things are extremely important as tools in our daily life, our dreams also know how to naturally wipe and reset and help us process. Sleep is such an important part of our energy field because it allows us that processing time and that replenishment time. And then, of course, we have our biblical and religious traditions where dreams play a significant role. The Hebrew Bible, where Joseph was interpreting Pharaoh's dreams; in Christianity, where Joseph was warned in dreams; in Islam, where the Prophet Muhammad received dream guidance. In all of these traditions, dreams were considered legitimate divine communication. And if they're considered legitimate divine communication then, they can be considered divine, legitimate communication now. Then, of course, there's your indigenous and shamanic traditions. Many indigenous cultures view dreams as journeys of the soul, encounters with spirit beings, or instructional experiences, initiatory experiences. In shamanic traditions, dreaming and waking reality are not separate domains. They involve animal spirit guides, ancestral contacts, future insights, healing missions. And this perspective aligns beautifully with metaphysical groups today. It's all about building that relationship with your internal world, which includes your guides, your ancestors, your original blueprints, your Akashic, other dimensions. Because did you know that all of the dimensions live within your auric field? We're not going to digress into it, but all is within. And you're able to move through all of it through your dreams. And then, of course, coming up on modern psychology in the 19th and 20th century, this is what I was going to get to. Dream interpretation shifted dramatically in the late 1800s. Sigmund Freud. Freud's The Interpretation of Dreams reframed dreams as expressions of unconscious desires, repressed wishes, and psychological symbolism. He emphasized personal subconscious meaning over divine origin, taking us right back to Aristotle. But then we also have Carl Jung. My man Jung, he expanded dream theory into archetypes, collective unconscious, spiritual symbolism, individuation, process. He reintroduced sacred symbolism into psychology. His ideas resonate strongly with everything that we're talking about here. So we can see how over time it's evolved and other people have put their input in. Some say, oh, it's just internal wishes, desires. Some people say, oh no, I'm speaking to spirit here. And we get more and more and more until we're able to tie it all together and realize that dreaming is not one note. It is the entire inner world that you and I are coming into the conscious, and we can play that. We can understand what our subconscious is trying to tell us. We can do our inner healing work through dream work and understanding what's there through symbolism. We can understand what the world is going through archetypal symbolism that appears in our dreams. And we can get in touch with our inner voice, that guidance system that we have through understanding how to interpret our dreams. Today, dream interpretation beautifully blends psychology, symbolism, neuroscience, spiritual belief, energy work, and astral theory. We've come full circle from divine message to psyche to an integrated model of all of them. And what's beautiful about this history is that across over 5,000 years of recorded history, one thing remains consistent. Human beings have always believed that dreams mean something. The interpretation has evolved, but the instinct to listen remains universal. We pay attention to our dreams. So given what dream interpretation is, the history of it, how it's evolved, the best way for you to learn how to interpret your own dreams is first to break them into categories. A lot of the time we have dreams and we get lost in the details. What does this part mean, or this symbol mean? Or how do I make a message out of this? It doesn't make sense. The best thing to do is to break it into one of these 4 categories. And as soon as you do that, you're already halfway there, because you know what kind of message is trying to come through. The first dream category is the psychological processing category. And this is your mind taking out the garbage. This is when you've been chewing on something, maybe an event that happens, an interaction that you've had. This is where maybe there's heaviness or negative feelings inside of yourself. And when you have this sort of dream, it's your mind processing it. But it tends to process through chaotic type of dreams or symbolism, things that don't really make a lot of sense. These dreams can be very fragmented. Like I said, chaotic. Even if it is linear in the dream, meaning there's a timeline of something that's actively happening, this is a dream you wake up from and you go, what the heck does that mean? Because you have to figure it out. Most of the time, those kinds of dreams that feel chaotic, that might even feel angry or scary, where things are symbolized, it's just something you're trying to process emotionally. And your body naturally knows how to do that. Like we mentioned before, it naturally knows how to clear itself and heal itself when given the chance, the time, and the opportunity to do so. This is where certain symbolism can come into play, where if you had an odd interaction with somebody during the day that's been eating at you and you fall asleep, maybe you dream that that person stole all of your books and you can't find them, and you're searching the entire dream trying to find that book. Maybe if you're feeling a little out of control in your life, you're dreaming that somebody else is driving a car that you're in, and it's a scary kind of drive, right? So these are linear stories that are happening, but it feels scary or out of control or chaotic in some way, and there's symbolism that's used. The second category here is the astral kind of dreams. Astral dreams show up in 2 different ways. They can show up as doing work in the astral realms, or they can show up as simply hanging out and spending time in the astral realm. And there's a difference in how it shows up in your dream. For instance, if you're in the astral realm, sometimes just spending time, meeting other people. A lot of the time, this could be because your consciousness gets bored hanging out inside of your physical body while you're sleeping, and it literally just floats to the astral for a while. If that is the way that you are dreaming in the astral, it probably looks very cartoonish. It might be very colorful, very wavy. Maybe people don't always look like people. Maybe they look like humanoids with stars and universes inside of them, like paintings or drawings. There's a lot in the astral that doesn't feel realistic. It feels detached from the 3D. And it's easy to reach those realms because we have all of those dimensions inside of our own auric field. All is within. But then we have the kind of astral dreams that you hear about sometimes when people are working, where your soul leaves your physical body and does work that your physical body can't do while you're awake. Maybe you are floating off to alien spaceships or doing rescue missions or helping to heal souls that haven't crossed over or helping to heal people. Whatever it is, these kind of dreams are things that you don't usually remember. I will say about 90% of those types of dreams you're not going to remember, but you'll know you had it because you'll wake up feeling exhausted. You'll feel like you've been working all night. And so these are the kinds of dreams that we want to make sure we're only having every so often. So if you're the type of person who finds yourself waking up tired every single morning, even though you know you've slept all night and you don't have any pre-existing medical conditions, you feel like you're just working in the astral all night. Maybe you need more grounding protections in your room, like some obsidians or a bowl of salt under your bed. Those grounding hematites, any of those things that kind of pull you back into your body to keep yourself from floating off. Because your soul has a purpose and it feels that purpose. And if there are people suffering out in the world or things to be done, your consciousness just goes off. It says, why do I need to sleep? I don't sleep. I'm a soul. The body needs to sleep. And the soul goes and continues its work. And these are two very different things. If you are of that rare percentage that do remember working in the astral, sometimes that can be a lot emotionally. It can be heavy emotionally because you might be seeing things or experiencing things that your conscious mind and your physical body find disturbing. You know, dealing with sick people or wars or things happening and helping to heal others. It's a lot of exchange, a lot of energy exchange. So you might be someone who needs to do a lot of energetic processing in your waking hours. Maybe doing a lot of Reiki or self-Reiki, or sitting with fire to allow the flame to transmute that energy, or sitting out in nature for at least 15 minutes at a time to allow nature to absorb that extra energy. The earth knows how to heal you. You just have to give it the chance to do so. So these are two very different experiences within the astral. One that's cartoonish, kind of floating free and fun, might leave you feeling elevated, expanded, whereas the other is very purpose-driven, can be heavy, usually isn't remembered. If it is remembered, it's hyper-realistic, as if you were there doing this thing. The third type of dream is a memory dream. And in a memory dream, this is literally pulling from childhood experiences, past life experiences, quantum life experiences, future life experiences. It's pulling from energetic memories that have come off of other people who you're energetically entangled with, such as spouses or best friends or children. These kinds of memories tend to be reworking conversations, or they are just replays, visiting old environments. So some of these you might remember the old environments, like a childhood home, being with your parents, things like that. Or they might be things you don't consciously remember if they're from a past life. And these are things that you can intuitively know about yourself. You can wake up from a dream and just ask yourself, was that a past life? Was that a quantum life? And let yourself feel a yes or a no answer about that. And since time technically isn't linear, everything from the past, everything from the future, everything from the quantum is happening right now. And if it's happening right now, you're going to access it from time to time in the dream realm. And these memories, there's not always something to be done with it, such as if you were having a psychological processing dream. Maybe it's just a memory, something that's replaying for you to look at and to visit. We do this from time to time. I don't find those dreams to be as common as the psychological processing dreams or even the astral dreams, but I do find that it happens. And so do a lot of you without really realizing that, because they're past life and not current life. If you're dreaming about something from your current life, it's either a continuation about something that had just happened, such as you went to a concert or were in a group of people and then you got home, went to sleep, and you dreamed that that was continuing, that you were still at the concert, that you were still hanging out with those people. That's kind of a memory dream. But most of the time it's either going to be something like that if it's from the current life, or it's going to be switched over to a psychological processing dream where something from this current life still needs to be addressed, and so we're trying to process that. The fourth kind of dream is prophetic dreaming. This happens more often than a lot of you think, because a lot of you out there don't think you have the gift of dreaming or the power of dreaming, and these sorts of dreams get overlooked. A prophetic dream gets easily overlooked because you doubt your self-worth and your personal power. You know if you've had a prophetic dream because you wake up from a prophetic dream with a feeling, with a passion, with a purpose. You know that that dream means something. But what you do is you talk yourself out of it. And you say, oh, it didn't mean anything. Oh, if you can't validate it, then you let it go. But prophetic dreams are usually very clear. The timeline is clear. There's not as much symbolism in a prophetic dream as there is in like a psychological processing dream. These are very clear cut. This is what's going to happen. This is the story in a prophetic dream. And these dreams come for a reason. We're not shown things that we can't do anything about, even if we don't know what we can do. When we're shown something through a prophetic dream, we're meant to either talk about it, to talk to someone else about it, to do energy work around it, because us being shown that thing proves that this is a prediction. This is an insight that we can heal, or we can help switch a timeline for a better future, for ourselves, for the person that it's about, for the collective. This is a narrative that we get to engage with. And even if you don't know what the dream itself means about the future, you can wake up and know without a shadow of a doubt that dream meant something and have that feeling around it. So that brings us to the next step, which is when we have a dream, now that we've put the dream that we've had into a category, how do we interpret that? And if it's a prophetic dream, how do we know when to talk to someone else about it? How do we know when to tell the other person about this dream? Because probably half of the reason that you guys discount yourselves when you have a prophetic dream is that maybe in the past you've had the dream, gone to the person about the dream, and the person has no idea what you're talking about or can't validate that for you, and so you stop doing it. This is where it's important to understand that you are viewing from your personal lens. Yes, it was 100% a prophetic dream, and how the information's coming to you is through your personal experiences, your feelings, and your point of view. So sometimes this means we have to remove our interpretation of what we saw in the dream for that dream to be relatable to someone else and for them to be able to interpret it for themselves. Or it could mean that we need to take that dream and what it means to us and know that it means what it means. And maybe it's for us to do energy work around to help these timelines, to hold these people that it was about, because people aren't always able to take that information on. And if people can't process the information that you're giving them in a healthy way, and if people can't use that information as a tool to help them move forward effectively, we probably don't need to give them that information. An important rule to remember when working with dreams or knowing whether to tell other people about your dreams is that dreams often are mirrors. Again, how we're perceiving a certain situation, how we're interpreting energy. And so when we think about telling someone else the dream, first we need to sit with ourselves. Always sit with yourself first. How can this possibly be about me or something that I individually can help with? If we're sure it's that prophetic kind of dream, because there's the other categories too. And if we're sure it's a prophetic dream, if we have that feeling, it's clear, it's linear, we have the drive, it's important, it means something, and then we sit with the mirror first. Is this something I need to do? Is this something I should just that I just need to understand about the future and what to do something with? And you're still feeling guided to tell the other person about the dream. We've already asked the question, is this about me or is it about them? But this is where you get really intuitive, where you really get to sit with your inner compass. And again, this isn't something you have to have this big, huge, clear communication with guides or angels. You can just ask your inner world, which is what all of this is about, relationship with your inner world. You can ask your inner world questions. Is this about me or is this about them? Is this something that I need to give to them or is this for me to deal with? You can ask the question, would sharing this create harm? And let yourself feel that yes or no answer. You can ask, am I seeking validation on this being a prophetic dream by sharing it with others? We share with others, not always thinking we need validation on the dream until we don't receive the validation or they have no idea what it means. And then we're feeling suddenly unvalidated when we didn't even realize maybe that was why we reached out. So asking yourself these questions first is important before sharing. So we want to keep it to ourselves if it's super emotionally charged, like triggering to you, if it's a projection, or if it's fear-based. We don't want to have to give other people that. There are things we can do to process energetically and emotionally, or to work with our inner guidance. There's prayers and energy that we can send to make sure that things change. There's ways to do things besides sharing fear. And we might want to share it if it feels clear and kind to the other person, if it offers the other person support, and if it seems to strengthen that connection, either your connection to the person or the person's connection with their inner world. Because we are gifted people who have these gifts of dream and dream interpretation, and sometimes they really are meant to be shared for the collective, for the timeline, for your neighbor, for your friends. Maybe your friend's afraid to tell you something that they're struggling with, but it comes to you in dream form anyways. I know that my friends might maybe hate that or love that about me, because if they're struggling with something, I'm going to know. And I have friends who, same thing, if I'm struggling, they're going to have a dream, and then they're going to call me, and I have to be like, I don't know what you're talking about. Now we want to establish how to interpret the dream. If it's an emotionally processing dream, you know that it's probably about something you've emotionally been struggling with, and maybe there's something that just needs to be confronted or talked about or worked through. If it's an astral dream, it's probably not a lot to be processed mentally as much as if you've been working. Maybe you need to release energetically and just have a clearing. When your dream comes to you symbolically, like a lot of emotional processing dreams do, these might be where you're trying to interpret your dreams. So there's animal symbolism, there's vehicle and house symbolisms, and some of these are very universal. But the first thing I want you to sit with when interpreting your dreams is yourself. How did this dream make me feel? If I could take a single line out of the theme of this dream, what would it be? You might want to keep a dream journal. So when you have a dream, you can write the dream and you can write the feeling that you have when you wake up. You can write that line. If I could write one sentence about the theme of this dream, this is it. And I want you to pay attention for the next 30 minutes or so after you wake up to what sorts of things come to your mind and write all of those down. I personally know I can have a dream about one thing and I'm like, dang, that was a weird dream. And then I go to get ready for work or to take the kids to school, and all kinds of things are coming to my mind. You know, I'm thinking about things while I'm brushing my hair and brushing my teeth and washing my face. And those are the things that dream is bringing up for me. They have no correlation. They're not alike in any capacity, but these are the things that were meant to come up, to bubble through the surface from that dream. And so I want to interpret those things myself first. And then if there's anything significant that feels like it stands out about the dream, I can revisit that after. When you interpret, you have to really take it from your understanding. You have to sit with your personal association of symbols, your cultural background, your current life context, how you react emotionally. Because if you have a dream about a snake, that doesn't always mean poison if you personally are not afraid of snakes. If you personally are the type of individual who works with snake energy and who understands that snakes are about shedding and beauty and renewal, then a snake in your dream might mean something completely different. Water does not always mean emotion. Usually, that's the archetypal answer. But if there's a lot of water in your dream, but water to you means something different. Maybe you're afraid of water. Maybe you're terrified of water. Maybe you're a waterphobic, whatever that's called. Or maybe you're just really thirsty when you go to bed. I've had that dream before. Yeah, take a gummy and then go to bed without drinking lots of water. You will dream that you are drinking some God-blessed water. Hydration. There are a lot of different things, and symbols aren't always universal. So we want to sit with what's internalized first, looking at those things first, because interpreting a symbol, we have to understand what this symbol means to me personally. We have to understand how we felt in the dream and after we had the dream. And we have to understand what changed by the end of the dream. Maybe in the beginning of the dream, it was very chaotic. We couldn't find anything, but by the end of the dream, maybe the thing was found. Maybe I felt more elevated or happy by the end of the dream. That's something to consider. And what's still unresolved by the end of the dream. We have to sit through our lens and our beliefs first. In fact, with dream interpretation, I've noticed with clients, it's extremely different working in dream interpretation from somebody who's from here in the West and somebody who's from a different part of the world. People with different backgrounds and cultures, those symbolisms are things that I might not know to pull up for them. but they might, or someone from their culture might know that because it feels significant to them. So always sit with dream interpretation yourself first. So after you've learned to sit with the dream yourself and your own personal beliefs about the symbols there, the feelings, more than anything, the feelings you got from the dream and the things coming to your mind after the dream, that's the most important part, I will say. But after all of that, absolutely, get you a dream interpretation book. Google what metaphysical or dream meaning of XYZ means, but don't outsource the answer. Nothing can tell you something that only you can know, that is only between you and your inner world. That's your relationship. And you can always learn about the collective symbols in your subconscious. So when you don't outsource the answers, but you can still look up some of these symbols and see what resonates with you and what doesn't. You might have very strong imageries, big themes, mythic tones, or it might be more subdued for your dream, but they feel important. If your dream involves things like water, animals, falling, flying, death, being chased, some of these reflect feelings of being out of control, or they can reflect life transitions or identity shifts like ego deaths, growth edges where you're growing in your spirituality and in your life. So going to a trusted source, going to Google, getting books, taking a dream interpretation course, all of these things are right there at your fingertips and at your disposal to do. But the most important thing is that you sit with it for yourself. See what resonates for you, what seems true for you based on your point of view. And when you're using these references for inspiration, not authority, a good approach is to compare multiple sources. Maybe when you're searching on the web or in a book, you go for maybe 3 sources of what does a giraffe mean? And notice any patterns between those 3 different sources, repeated themes, and then return to your intuition. Does this feel right to me? Does the giraffe feel like looking into the future for me? Teach yourself empowerment because you're the primary interpreter of all of your dreams, while others can simply offer you insight into yourself. It's your relationship. And for those of you who say you don't dream, let's try a little sleep hygiene. 1, you could be not dreaming because you're going to work in the astral realms. So knowing whether or not you wake up feeling refreshed or tired each day might be important for you. But if you are the other type of non-dreamer where you're just not sleeping well, or maybe you're not getting deep enough in your sleep, just try a little sleep hygiene. These could be things like not using your phone for at least 30 minutes before bed, because that stimulates and activates your nervous system and it keeps you from going deep while you're sleeping. So we want to not scroll, just stay off of technology entirely for about 30 minutes before bedtime. Maybe you ask for a dream before you fall asleep. This could be done through prayer, through meditation, just by announcing it to the universe. I'd like a dream while I sleep tonight. And then keep that journal right there next to your bed. And a big hawk is now squawking. So that message is for somebody. Ask for a dream. Pray for a dream. And use your journal. You might want to write fragments or just a line, a source, a theme, something you're feeling. Just capture the emotion first and the story second, because dream recall increases with attention. And dreaming is trainable. It's absolutely trainable. If there's one point you've learned and heard over and over through this video, is that dreams are not random and they're not happening. They are that internal relationship between you and your inner world. They help you emotionally integrate how to recalibrate your identity even as you grow through this life. It's your soul language, and it's all about that relationship. and it will grow and grow. It's trainable. And I just want you to sit with this for a moment. Dreams are the bridge between who you believe you are and who you're becoming. When you learn to listen, you discover you've been speaking to yourself all along. And one final tip, because of course I pulled a card for you. Heather and mistletoe. Get yourself a bunch of heather and mistletoe and hang it by your bed, on the bedpost or over your bed, and see how this helps or even changes your dreams and your inner landscape a little bit. In my Celtic tree deck, this particular card, which flung itself out at me at random right before I went to teach this, of course, the keywords around this are making contact with spiritual dimensions, the spiritual path, spiritual development. And so these particular herbs or trees, the mistletoe and the heather, represents that healing and spiritual development, and it acts as a gateway between the worlds. They help manifest our wishes and stimulate our dreams. They are protective and promise good luck. Mistletoe represents the invisible life essence shared with its host, which is the oak. Thus, this plant brings in the essence of divinity and supports survival and immortality. Together, heather and mistletoe represent a closer relationship with the spirit world and promise healing. They represent the continuity of life and the promise of the eternal life of the spirit. It feels like this is a link between our earthly plane and the spirit world. Communications with the spirit world, divine intervention that results in healing. So we get to pay attention to dreams, visions, and synchronicities that come when we have these plants near us. Prayer and meditation is helpful. Ritual is helpful. Spending time in nature is helpful. Try that. I'm going to try that. And I hope that you guys have learned a lot about your inner relationship with your inner world and dream interpretation. I'm Mary Colazo. Welcome home.